let's say you're a company and you've sold a product and some kids are going to get killed. Okay, but you're making a lot of money. When it comes your time, you're going to feel every individual that you've hurt with your negligence and greed. So it's not like a punishment, but you're going to see what you've done. So, like, the best advice is like, don't screw up anybody else's life if you can help it.
I'd like to welcome to the show, Laura Kitchlich. How are you doing, Laura?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your remarkable journey with my audience. Hopefully it's going to be a entertaining and teaching story that we could help everybody with. So my very first question before we get into your NDE was, what was your life like prior to having a near-death experience?
Well, I was a teenager at the time. I was 19 years old. I had my first apartment. I worked at a rock and roll nightclub at night. I tried to model during the day. I was also flunking out of junior college. And let's see, I was juggling two boyfriends. How was your typical teenager having a real taste for freedom and just beginning to live?
And did you have any spiritual, were you raised spiritually or religiously at all?
Well, my grandfather was a Presbyterian minister, and we were very involved in the church. I sang in the choir all my youth. I went to church camp, things like that. But I have to say, I had my doubts about organized religion. I didn't believe the Bible word for word. I had Judeo-Christian values that were very ingrained, but I wasn't buying what they were selling, basically.
So were you in search of anything at the time of your near-death experience? Meaning, like, were you going deeper into spirituality? You were juggling two boyfriends and hanging out at rock and roll clubs?
Having a good time. I was involved in social life, having a good time. I can say this now because I'm 63, but I was a pretty girl having a taste for freedom and fun, and just living life in the Washington, D.C. area, just enjoying my life.
So, did you feel lost at all, or you were just having a good time?
I wasn't lost at all. My father was very, very strict, and he raised both his daughters like boys so that we could be independent, and things like that, think for ourselves. Going out and getting a job and holding an apartment and paying bills and stuff was a very easy transition. So I wasn't a lost teenager whatsoever.
Okay, good. I ask these questions because a lot of people, when they have near-death experiences, are either off the path or going through really difficult times. It seems like you were just being a very happy 19-year-old having a good old time. I remember being 19. I remember those years. They were wonderful.
What's scary is you think you know it all, and you think you're just so cool.
You think you're the last Coca-Cola in the desert, as they say, and you just and you think you know everything, and you're invulnerable. Obviously, you're invulnerable, and you'll never die. That's the farthest thing from your mind. So what happened on the day of your near-death experience?
Well, I also want to preface this. I was a teenager that was responsible, even though I was a good time Charlie. I never got into alcohol, drug use, or smoking anything, legal or illegal. So I was kind of more grounded and more responsible than most teens. And the accident was such a fluke. It was such a fluke.
So what happened?
My girlfriend Terry called me up. I was in my apartment in Falls Church, Virginia, and she said, "Let's go horseback riding." I said, "Well, let's just go where I used to ride, when I was in high school. Let's go out to Centerville." And she kind of bailed on me, and it was such a pretty day. I decided to go over to my mom's house, pick up my helmet and boots, and then I cruised on out to Centerville, Virginia, and rented a horse. Now, there were two horses tied up, and I could have picked either one, but I like the real pretty one. And the gal said, "Wouldn't you like to take the white one?" I said, "I don't need a Western saddle. Give me an English saddle. I know what I'm doing." Big mistake, because the horse was a little bit above my abilities, but it was a nice horse. And I want to tell everybody the horse was fine. I'm the one that got hurt. because I get a lot of email. What happened to the horse, Laura?
Yes, everyone's much more concerned about the horse than they are about you.
Not me. So I got on the horse and there weren't any other riders around. So I decided to go out to a field and canter, and I walked around, and I was having a great time. And then I met up with these two gentlemen. I didn't know them. They were, maybe in their 20s or 30s or so. And we decided to ride together. And I was kind of like ending the afternoon. I just wanted to get, home. I had to go to work in a few hours. So what happened is we had the bright idea to race the horses back to the barn. Not a good idea. And of course I had to win. And I hadn't been riding in a while. I was a little bit out of shape. So the horse was going pretty much at a canter, and then went into a hand gallop, which is like a racehorse. And I was losing my balance a little bit. I was a little concerned, but I was holding on. And the horse stumbled, and I went flying. I mean, I went aerial like a rocket off to the right of the horse. And I remember saying something profane because I knew I was going to get clobbered. Didn't think I would get killed or anything. I just knew this isn't working out. This was like that feeling of like, oops, it's going to happen. So the funny thing is, Alex, is I went off like a bottle rocket off that horse, and I never hit the ground. I never felt the impact, because my body literally went one way and my soul went another. I went straight into this black pit. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I went into this big dark pit, and it was just as abrupt. Let's pretend you're sleeping in your bed. It's the middle of the night, and all of a sudden you're cast out into the Pacific Ocean. That's how abrupt it felt. So I went into this big, dark, black tunnel at a high rate of speed. I knew I was off the horse. I knew where I was. I wasn't confused. And I knew I was dead. So there was a separation between body and soul. I knew it could happen because I had an out-of-body experience as a kid, and left my body before a terrible accident and went right back in, of course, with horses. So I'm in this black tunnel, and I got the feeling of total isolation. And I thought, it must feel like this to astronauts in outer space. You're alone. So a roller coaster of emotions came out. Shock, a profound sadness because my life had just begun to live. It was every emotion you could think of coming, like a roller coaster up and down as I was going through this tunnel. Now the tunnel itself there wasn't any light at the end for a while. And it was like soft velvet tunnel. I felt like I was still me, like I had arms and legs. I felt like I was still me. And I knew that the tunnel was airy and light, yet dense at the same time. I don't know how I drew that opinion. I just did. But it was nothing structurally like anything here in physical reality that was real. So I'm going through this tunnel with every emotion, and then this profound feeling like you did it to yourself. Anger at myself. You did it to yourself, and now you'll never get to live. Coming so close to having this great life and then having it snatched, and it was all my stupid fault for riding a horse above my abilities and racing him, and a lot of anger at myself. And then there was a light, and then there was my grandfather, and that was wonderful. I forgot about I know this sounds weird. I forgot about being dead. I was just so glad to see him. And he was older. He died at 72, and he maybe looked 60. He didn't look sick anymore. He wasn't ravaged with cancer. And, to be reunited with him was worth the fall. It was worth the accident. Yeah.
So what happened next?
This part I didn't like. They say you have a classic life review, like it's like going through a Rolodex of your life. It is, but it isn't. It's not a judgment. You judge yourself. But I was given the opportunity to show what my actions were. And I was a 19-year-old kid. I wasn't a serial killer. I hadn't done anything terrible. And, I hadn't, screwed up anybody's life yet.
Right.
So, but I saw things that were very disturbing to me, or I took them to heart. Because I was 19, there wasn't a lot of self-forgiveness. If I did this at 60 or 70, I would have gone, aha, that's how I thought at that time. So it was more personal, more upsetting. So basically, I was in this place. I don't know how I got there. I was just there. I was ushered there. And I knew my grandfather was somewhere, but not next to me, like in the background. And I was being ushered by an outside individual. I am guessing now in my 63-year-old brain, my higher self, but at that time I had no concept of it, just being ushered, and it wasn't a punishment. So basically, this is how it goes. You see the result of your actions, like from scene to scene. Like something stupid you do as a little kid and you hurt your little friend's feelings, but you feel what they are feeling. You see it from their point of view. I was like harsh to this little girl, like in first grade, and I felt so guilty about it because I really hurt her feelings. And it was so stupid of me and trivial, but I was mad at myself. I saw some things like that, some missed opportunities to be nice. And this wasn't a like, oh, you have to be good. You have to be, and this is what happens when you're bad. It wasn't like this. It was more of an understanding of how things work. I saw some good things, like when I rescued a kitten, saved its life, and got out in traffic as a teenager and rescued this cat when I was 18, this poor little white kitten that was going to get run over and smushed, and ran through traffic and got it. That was a bigger thing over there than I realized. Or how there was a kid that was a little girl that was being some of the girls in high school quite nasty to her, and I went and I tried to talk to her, and that was big. And when I found the lost child was big, because it was big to those individuals. Not so much a good deed, but it meant a lot. And some dumb stupid things I did. I felt humbled by my quote life review. And I really got the feeling, I was left with a feeling later when I kind of had to digest it all. It's like the physician, do no harm. You don't want to screw up somebody else's destiny. Even though you can, you shouldn't. Like the husband that berates his wife, and she doesn't go for the career she could have been, or she could have been more of a person because he has berated her and harangued her for so long. That is a big no-no. There's a horrible responsibility you have when you've done something like that, and you're going to feel the results of your actions through others. So I'm not like, saying that this is like a judgment day. It really isn't. And I don't want to put a religious context or spin on this, because I did not have a religious epiphany with all this. But I just got the feeling it was there to show me. And doing no harm to an individual is very important. And then I want to say something that I think that is really, really big. Let's say you're a company and you've sold a product and some kids are going to get killed. Okay, but you're making a lot of money. When it comes your time, you're going to feel every individual that you've hurt with your negligence and greed. So it's not like a punishment, but you're going to see what you've done. So like the best advice is like, don't screw up anybody else's life if you can help it. And when you've done something kind or good for another person or an animal, it's important. So
it's kind of
preachy.
Right. No, it's kind of like there is no what's the word? feeling or not judgment, but there is no judgment, but there is no attached vibration to it in the sense that if you put your hand in fire, you're going to get burned. It's a matter of fact. It's just what it is. It's not good. It's not bad. The fire has neither a positive nor a negative charge to it. It is what it is. So when you do something that hurts somebody else, it is what it is. And they're just showing you the repercussions of what you have done, and vice versa, good or bad, negative or positively charged. Is that pretty much the way it goes?
You're explaining it a lot better than I am.
I've done a couple of these.
I had a very hard time with it because I was a kid. And when you're 19, you think like a kid. So I thought, oh, I was a little more horrified at my actions than anybody else could have been. And some missed opportunities to be better,
Sure.
So, I went through that. My grandfather was behind, guiding me and everything, but it was pretty unpleasant.
So then after you've gone through this life review, who else is in the room? Is just you feel your grandfather in the back, but do you see any other light beings, or do you feel other presence?
Oh yeah, there's a presence. Somebody literally like holding my shoulders and guiding me and pushing me and mentoring me. And I got the feeling that there was whispering, talking, but I just couldn't hear it. I couldn't decipher it. It wasn't, it had to be in English, but I couldn't, other souls that were communicating that I was missing them. I couldn't plug into it or was able to hear it.
Got it.
And you're looking for a floor. There isn't one. So, that's really pretty upsetting. It wasn't good. This wasn't going well. I mean, it was great to see my grandfather and stuff. And then something beautiful happened. I literally zoomed through layers of non-physical reality, from dense to less dense. And I arrived at source. Now, source, going through that flying feeling or that traveling feeling is a rush, is just freaking fantastic. And then arriving, like I burst into this, and I can only say that my mind perceived it as, not what it actually was. My mind perceived it as like a burst of clouds. There's sun, there's like almost an ocean of clouds. It's mine, it's source. There's music that floats in random waves through. It's bliss, and you're just wrapped in this sea of love. Now, I had no sensation of arms and legs. I believe, just guessing, hypothesis now, that I was a point of consciousness at that particular time, floating in a sea of love. I mean, just floating with other points of consciousness. I'm thinking, I'm not sure, but these other points of consciousness were versions of me, past lives me, future lives me. I don't think I was in with like in heaven or touching God. I think this is as far as most people can go, though. So I'm guessing that that sea of love is almost self-love, if that's that's a good word for it. But it was beautiful. It was bliss. I was floating, and I didn't want for anything. I didn't have regrets. I was free of troubles. There were no troubles. I mean, if I could float in that every once in a while now, I mean, it would be so refreshing. And as good as it was over fairly quickly.
Okay.
Didn't get answers. There was a bright light there, but no visible sun. So the next place I went to, I'm standing, or I had my body. It was sort of drawn backwards. I had my body. I'm looking to the right, and there's a lot of black around me, and I'm looking to the right, and I see this blue, looked like the earth. It looked like the earth. And I thought, isn't that beautiful? Oh my God, I hate heights. And I'm thinking, I hate heights. Okay, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. Okay, I'm still me. I hate heights. And I'm like yelling in my mind, I hate heights. I don't like, this at all. Was it really the earth? It was my perception of it. So, and in front of me was this cathedral with like a main hall, and it did seem to have a floor, and then there was an aisle here, aisle there. So again, somebody's behind me, guiding me into this. And then I'm flooded with information, knowledge, and it's overwhelming that these were my past lives. And on one side is all the lives I've lived as a male. On the other side is all the lives I've lived as a female. And I'm like, I could never, I'm a girly girl. I could never have been a male. I couldn't even conceptualize such a thing. But I'm going with it. And I'm looking down this row, and it's like they're lined up, white, colorless individuals. And of course I got a touch. And I touched, and then I could actually see form of a man, looked like he was in his 40s or 50s, I don't know. White Caucasian, just kind of like, oh, like that at me. And I just took my hand back. Oh God, these are all the male, and they had to be at least 50. And then I went over, and then I touched an individual on the female side. And I've said this on other shows. She reminded me of a really mean lunch lady I had in grammar school. Okay. But she wasn't any beauty. And I'm not liking this. I don't like the idea of reincarnation. I don't like the idea of past lives. I didn't like it kind of shoved down my throat, but I was curious. I wasn't afraid. Nobody was, trying to scare me. I just thought, oh, I've done this before. I don't want to come back and be 13 again. I don't want to, this is just not, I was kind of horrified. I mean, if I had over 100 past lives, I wasn't getting it right. Was I just failing life 101 or what? And then I thought, and it was sort of put in my head, this is the life that you become aware of such things. So I don't know why this life, I became aware, because, I'm not good in school. I was dyslexic. I'm, a little bit of a wild child. Why it was in this lifetime, this incarnation, that I would become aware, maybe because I had too many accidents with horses. I don't know. So I have to say I was still me, but I was getting more knowledge and more understanding. So the general concept is, when a soul comes into physical reality to experience, learn life's lessons, it's not a song, let's hold hands, sing Kumbaya moment. You fracture into different personalities at different times in history to live your life, to learn lessons, and it all happens at once. So again, another thing for a teenager that really couldn't digest it. I was more confused than got answers. Oh, way more confused. And then everything changed, and suddenly I'm going back again. And I'm standing on a beach. And this was a beautiful beach with these cliffs that were big rocks, and you could see windows were carved out of it. And so people inhabited this beach or this cliff thing. Gorgeous, gorgeous sand. I mean, the water was just so true blue. And then I was thinking a little bit about religion. I thought, wow, what happened to the tree of life? I haven't seen anything like that. And as soon as I thought it, there was this beautiful pine tree right in the shoreline that came straight up where pine trees could never grow. And it was white and it had like a light moss color to it. So I went over and looked at the texture of the bark and everything. And it was a beautiful pine tree. And then I realized later on, it was a thought responsive reality. But it took me a long time to figure that one out. But I just thought, oh, because I'm 19. And I didn't get a chance to look a lot or investigate like I'd like to. So Zoom, I'm back, with my grandfather, and we're standing in this layer closer to physical reality because it felt denser, felt heavier. Standing there, and all of these things I sort of had learned, like in each thing I was like gaining this knowledge, just started to leave or fade or dissolve or get pulled out. I don't know how to explain it, but all the epiphanies and the understandings were taken away, and there's only a skeleton of those memories left now when I was coming back. But I realized I had to come back, and I wanted to grab my grandfather's hand. Now, he had very large hands. He had the bluest eyes, like Paul Newman. You could still see his beautiful blue eyes, and his hand was white. And I wanted to grab his hand, and even my adult hand felt small in comparison to his hand. And I really didn't want to come back because the physical reality or life on earth or whatever you want to call it I wasn't as connected to it as I had been before, just a few moments ago. So it was just a lot of grief and anguish to leave him. If I hadn't seen him, if it had been someone else that grieved me, like a great aunt or somebody I wasn't close to, I don't think I would have tried to stay so hard. I did tell him some of my problems that were kind of personal that I, not going to talk about. Sure. But he explained a few things to me. It was very sad. Very sad. About other family members. Very sad. Sure. And then I started to travel backwards, and I couldn't hold on to him.
And then what? And then you were slammed back into your body?
Oh, and it's not pleasant. Oh, it's like being dropped from a building. Because I went from feeling wonderful, painless, into pain. I was hurt.
Yeah.
Broken my nose. I broke my finger. There wasn't a body part that wasn't strained, bruised, and so sore. I went to this painful body, and I knew a lot of time had passed because there was a car down in the field to take me to the hospital. There were other people. Somebody had gotten my car keys and gotten my purse out of my Chevy Vega. So I guess to take me to the hospital, with my purse and ID and stuff, or to ID me if I died or whatever. And there was all these people that were concerned. And I'm looking around, and they're trying to pull me up to, because they want to get me, and I'm not loving it.
So let me ask you this. There's so many things I want to unpack here. When this concept of multiple lives happening at once, you're not the first to say that on the show. It's hard to grasp that idea in this space and time reality that we have, where there is no space or time. It's different. And if let's say, right now, you and I are in the Middle Ages, in Rome, in Egypt, in Atlantis, and we're also in the future, on the moon, in Mars, wherever it will be, in our timeline. Does that mean that we have different perspectives happening all at once? This is just the one that we're experiencing through this avatar at this moment. Like, this is the needle where the needle's hitting the record at this point, but there's multiple needles on
Yeah.
multiple records at the same time. That makes sense?
Creepy? I didn't like that concept. I still don't like it.
If you're enjoying this conversation, I invite you to go deeper down the rabbit hole with me on Next Level Soul TV. It's packed with exclusive content like live special guest Q&As, daily podcasts, commercial-free access to the entire Next Level Soul catalog, early access to episodes before they air, and special meditations you won't find anywhere else. We will be adding new exclusive content every month, plus you can connect with me during my monthly live streams. Just go to nextlevelsoul.com/subscribe and join our soulful community today. I'll see you on the inside.
I realized after I got this, okay, let me put it a different way. I've been the hero.
Yeah,
in life.
the villain.
I've been the villain.
Yeah,
I've been the follower. I've been the leader.
Yeah.
I've been
Rich,
the
poor.
homeless person. I've been the everything, every race, creed, color, boy, you know what? You let go of your prejudices. If you have if you have a life review or that, they just aren't there anymore when you come back. And the first thought I had, Alex, when I was looking around, after I opened up my eyes in this beautiful field, and I just said to myself, this is not reality.
No, this is the dream.
Yeah.
This is the dream. And that's been said for thousands of years in different ancient texts as well. It's really interesting that you did not like the idea of past lives. Like for me, I actually enjoy the idea of reincarnation in past lives, because it's like, oh, I get to experience, because that's one thing I didn't understand from being raised Christian, is like, oh, you just get the one and it just happens to be potluck. Like I could only experience a woman being rich, or a man being poor, or a black man in South Africa at the wrong time, or a black woman in the South at the wrong time, or wherever the prejudices are. Or if you die early, like if you die as a kid, that's it. Like it just didn't make sense, where the concept of reincarnation, that you have multiple players to the game, made a lot more sense to me, and actually gives me comfort to understand that, like, oh, I don't have to get it all right this time. I have a set of things that I have to do in this life, rather than just have to get it all in because this is the only time you're going to be here. So that's just my personal perspective on it.
Well, I think you're more healthy than I am. I didn't like it. I can't say I'm a big fan of how everything went while I was dead. I make some jokes about it, but when I tried to tell the ER doctor, he asked me what drugs I'd taken and just treated me like garbage. And it took me about 12 hours to calm down.
I'm sure. Well, let me ask you that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, that what happened when you finally came out? You've been, obviously, this is a heck of a traumatic experience physically, but then, and psychologically on the earth plane, but then now understanding this other knowledge that most don't have, at a time where near-death experiences are not talked about like they are today.
No.
And these conversations were not happening in a public forum at all. How did you process it? When did you come out of the closet, the NDE closet? And how did the people
anguish.
And how did people around you deal with it?
I anguished over this. What I did is, I tried to talk to the ER doctor, and he shamed me and just insulted me. My mom was a nurse there, and she stood up for me. And she said, my daughter's had a severe head injury. She stopped breathing. And he basically said, cry me a river. She's saying she left her body. Come on, what drugs is she on? It was awful to me. So my mom just picked me up and we left the hospital. And then she checked me for hours, every hour, because to see if I had a brain bleeding. Nowadays, the doctors couldn't have, they would just put me to the psych ward and been done with me. So I decided I couldn't talk to anybody. I'm not going to tell my mom, hey, I just had a conversation with your dead father.
Yeah.
She would have lost it. And so I went to a therapist and tried to talk to a therapist, I guess about 10 days later. And she said, are we having a pity party about our broken nose?
What are you kidding? What
no, I'm
kind
not.
of
I can tell you
therapist
her
is
name.
this?
She's still in practice.
What kind of therapist is that?
Yeah, we had a real pity party, you know. Don't worry, the doctor took his hand and he pushed it back in, so I got a bump and nothing more. She was horrible to me. So then I didn't talk about it for a long time. I finally opened up, you know, like to my grandmother. And when things started happening and I had experiences, I talked to my sister, told her everything, my mother, my grandmother, we all discussed it. We kept it private within the family. And I didn't talk about it from this was 1979 at 19 years old. I didn't talk about it till I was 50. I was that much in the closet because I didn't want to be labeled a wackadoo.
Right.
And if I hadn't been having these constant dreams and paranormal occurrences, you know, that bothered me. I would have kept those things quiet, but I kept dreaming about these stories, like these stories and with a paranormal flair. And then I just started writing fictional books, and I just was able to get out all my experiences, put in, you know, the stuff I learned about my great grandmother having the gift and how she knew when people died before she got the letter, and all these things that had run through my family on my grandmother's side. So if I hadn't written books, I still would be not talking about it. But I lived in a time where if you talked about such things, you were shamed, you were thought mentally ill, or just a plain big fat liar. Even today, sometimes I'll get some very negative comments. This was my near-death experience. This was my truth. Take it or leave it. I'm just sharing what happened to me because I had no one to listen to. If I had only heard one person recount it, I wouldn't have felt the anguish and the isolation for many years.
Right. I mean, Raymond Moody's book came out, I think, in 76, and it wasn't a runaway bestseller by any stretch. Yes, it wasn't it. Let's just say.
I interviewed him on my show a couple of years ago. What a brilliant man.
Oh, he's wonderful. He's a wonderful. Well, he's the one that coined the phrase near-death experience and started to bring it out into the public eye.
Right.
And what we try to do on the show is to open that up to people as well that might not know about it. But it's so much more. I mean, even now, people think to go to the light, the tunnel, like it's part of the zeitgeist of humanity now. Before, those channeling and all that kind of stuff would never even been talked about in the same way. So it's really interesting. So you said you had some other paranormal things. What other after effects were there from it?
Well, they weren't pleasant at first. They you know, now it doesn't bother me. It was very unpleasant. After my near-death experience, you know, time went by, and I had a friend that died that came to in my room one night, and I saw, when someone dies, their point of consciousness sometimes looks like a mauve color ball or orb, what they call. And it's so beautiful. It's like liquid glass. It's transparent and just gorgeous. And sometimes they glide into the room and wake you up. And I'd be hysterical. I called my sister and said, you know, basically said, who died in the family? So that happened. And usually, you know, somebody had died, and so that happened the first couple of times. You know, I got up, screamed, ran out of the room. After a while, it just didn't affect me. It doesn't affect me. So basically, I think that you bring back something. I don't know what the word is, but you bring back something. Not more, you have an understanding of the non-physical, but you bring back some very limited ability. Everybody's got a pinch of psychic. Nobody's got a full cup. I've always said that. And when I want it to happen, it never does. And when it does, it's random, and it comes in, the message comes in sideways. So I've had different things like that happen over the years. was very hard to digest. Now I'm totally unfazed by it. It's not that I'm brave, I'm just numb to it. So I can go months or even a year without a paranormal occurrence, but when it does happen, it's pretty interesting, sometimes insightful. I was very sick one time, and my grandfather came to me, and he looked like he did when he was alive, and came into my room, sat down beside me, wearing a plaid flannel shirt, like burgundy and gray, with gray trousers. I could make out every definition. He put his hand over my stomach and said, "Your spleen." And then he dissolved. And I was very sick at the time, so I went into the other room. I was staying at my mom's. I was very ill. And I'd gone to the hospital with concerns and was told I was okay, just had an inflamed liver capsule, yada, yada, yada. I asked her, "Where's your spleen?" I had no idea where in the body the spleen was, and I was concerned, but, and then I heard it again. I woke up a couple days later and I could hear spleen, spleen in my left ear in a feminine voice. So I got up like a rocket and I went to the doctors and I said, "Listen, this is going to sound BATSH, crazy, but if I don't get my spleen out, I believe I'm going to die." So I told the doctor the whole thing, and he said, "Well, I'm going to write you a physician's order for a splenectomy." And he said, "You know why? You're not the first person who's come in with something outlandish like that where it didn't turn out to be true. And if you're wrong, you're going to go through a miserable operation for nothing." They got in there. The surgeon took out the spleen that had hemorrhaged and had a huge attached clot the size of a man's fist. Hours or a day or two away from bleeding to death. So
remarkable.
But after I had the surgery, it hurt so bad, Alex. It was so miserable, and I got double pneumonia. I didn't know if he's done me a favor or not. It was that bad.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest takeaway you got from this near-death experience?
The biggest gift. Okay, yes, of course, there's continuation of existence after physical death. Yeah, we all know that. The best thing for me, that was the icing on the cake, was the fact that I'm going to see my grandfather again. I'm going to have a continued relationship with him and people that I really love. And I'm sure I won't have to see people I don't like in the next life. I will, the relationship and the love is still there. I know for a fact that there are consensus realities. That's what William Buhlman called. I didn't coin that term. William Buhlman coined that. That are very Earth-like. People will think it's heaven. And there's, like, let's say if you really want to live by the ocean, there will be an ocean or a area for you to go to that's very lifelike and comfortable after you transition to be with loved ones. So in a way, it is heaven. But I've lost the concept of heaven and hell.
Sure. It sounds almost like when you were explaining some of the things you were seeing on the other side, it sounded very much like the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, where he passes and creates his whole, he's in his wife's creation. It's a part of the story, but he's like thinks something and it happens. And
I think it's a little bit more difficult than that. I mean, I don't think
obviously.
Yeah. And what I didn't like about the movie, I really didn't like all that Catholic guilt that was in that movie. They dished it out by the
no, you could definitely pick and choose some stuff out of that movie, but just some certain concepts they had so beautiful.
They had the right idea when they were doing that. But like, I had a relative that killed himself, and there is no repercussions of that. It's doing something in an anguished moment. But I think that you don't go right to these well, there's a lot more to it that I'm not a good explainer of.
Sure, I got you.
There is physical realities here. It's very, very dense, and there's like a progression because I shot through it like a cannon to go to source. There's different layers. It's sort of like cruising the interstate. That's the feeling I got. Like when I was flying or traveling there, I was going like on I-95, man, I'm going down the interstate, how this works. And I was kind of shocked that I was going through layers
of realities.
There were inhabitants, there were people in there, there were souls in there. And I also want to say something to animal lovers. Animals have souls. You know, they have their own path. I don't know exactly how it works, but, you know, I saw when my dog was dying, I saw her literally leave her body and be young again. And it was beautiful. Tragic that I lost her, but beautiful that I was able to see it. I've had some extraordinary paranormal experiences. And the only thing I don't like about it is just, I don't get to, it's like getting clues, you know, 40 years of clues, how these things work, but I never get to stay in them long enough to get explanation. And they never, the same clue is never repeated.
Yeah.
So, you know, I feel like this like paranormal sleuth, and if I die tomorrow and there is a room that says lecture on heaven, the other one says heaven, I'm taking the lecture first because that's who I am. I'm always trying to figure it out.
That's amazing. Laura, I'm going to ask you a few questions to ask all my guests. What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
That's a very good question, because I've struggled with illness and autoimmune disease for 40 years, and I've really thought about that. But I think a fulfilled life is when you are living your best possible life. You're your best possible person. You know, you're kind to others. You're not taking your crap out on others. You're doing your best. You don't have to be a super saint, but you just got to be on a kinder path, or a path that's a little bit more gentle.
If you had a chance to get in a time machine and go back in time and speak to your younger self, what advice would you give her?
Oh, don't marry that guy. You don't need cosmetic surgery. No, I'm just, no, I would, if my younger self, I would cradle my younger self and tell her it's going to be okay. You're going to figure it out, and not to feel so isolated, because the anguish I had after my near-death experience and the fact that I let go of organized religion was a lot of anguish. I wish I could go back and cradle that younger self and guide her to stick up more for herself too. Yeah.
How do you define God or source?
Our creator was created source, but I think source is a little different. I can only go from my experience. I was going to my original source, you know, that beautiful sea of love. But I think there's something beyond that. I think there's a creator that's organizing that. I felt the love of God or our creator, but not in an organized religious sense.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
To learn, to love, and if you possibly can, to become aware of how things work.
And where can people find out more about you and the work and your books and the things that you're doing?
Well, that's very kind of you. If you go to LURAKETCH.com, LauraKetch.com, there's my books. And what I did was, I started my books in 1979, and I have a character that had a near-death experience very much like mine, but it's not an autobiography. It's set in the horse world. There is always a murder mystery. It's a paranormal romance, and basically there's a tragedy that pulls in all these people from the hospital group of near-death experiencers, and they're trying to decipher these ghostly messages. So if you want to go back to 1979, in a time before the internet, where a man courted a girl, it was a little bit more romantic, and the paranormal wasn't on YouTube. I try to explain through the characters how things work. So 80% of the paranormal occurrences are very truthful. Then you've got 20% embellishment, because it's a book and it's entertainment. But if you want to really figure out how things work, it's well explained through the book series, The Near-Death Saga, and Near-Death Connection is the first book.
Very good. And do you have any parting messages for the audience?
I want to thank them for listening. The horse is fine. The horse was never injured in the accident, just I was. And, you know, people, if you've had a near-death experience, good gosh, you're not alone. And if you never have one, you can kind of, listen to other people's recounts, and maybe you've got a clue when you do experience the next phase of when you die. It's not as scary if you have a little information, perhaps.
Laura, thank you so much for this story, for your testimony, for this conversation, and hopefully will help people around the world. So I appreciate you, my dear.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.